The story begins in a cold ICU room where billionaire tech mogul Olivia Nien lies in a coma after a mysterious car crash. For 6 months, doctors treat her like a lost cause until a young, rebellious doctor, Aiden Lee, notices something no one else did. Her chest bandages are too tight. He breaks protocol and replaces them, triggering a miraculous reaction. Olivia's heart rate spikes. She's still alive inside. As Aiden investigates further, he uncovers a horrifying truth. Olivia's coma wasn't an accident, it was orchestrated. Her own brother, Daniel, had been drugging her to take over her company. With quiet determination, Aiden gathers evidence, exposes Daniel, and brings him to justice in a powerful courtroom showdown. But just when they think it's over, Daniel sends someone to silence them. Aiden is stabbed while protecting Olivia, yet even this attack only brings them closer. In a heartfelt press conference, Olivia publicly confesses her love for Aiden, silencing tabloids and doubters. They marry in a quiet Brooklyn park, far from the headlines, and build a new life together. Not of wealth, but of purpose. They open the Nien Lee Free Clinic, providing care for those forgotten by the system. In the end, their story is not just about healing the body, but healing the soul. The steady beep of machines echoed through the dimly lit ICU of St. Augustine's Hospital. Tubes and wires ran like lifelines from the fragile body on the bed, keeping her tethered to a world she hadn't responded to in 6 long months. Her name was Olivia Nien, once a fierce, commanding presence in Silicon Valley, a billionaire tech genius whose name could sway stock markets. Now she was just a shadow beneath sterile white sheets. Her dark hair spilled over the pillow, her face pale and hauntingly still. No movement, no words, no signs of life. The hospital staff had settled into routine. To most, she was just another coma patient. But Dr. Aiden Lee couldn't look at her that way. Aiden was young, sharp eyes, a wrinkled coat from sleepless nights, and a heart that hadn't yet gone numb to the cold procedures of medicine. He had been assigned to Olivia's case months ago, and something about her wouldn't let him walk away. Today, something felt different. He stood quietly at her bedside, staring at the tight, yellowed bandages wrapped around her chest. They looked old. Too tight. They weren't helping her, they were hurting her. Restricting her breathing. His jaw clenched. "This isn't treatment," he whispered. "This is negligence." From the doorway, a voice snapped at him. "Dr. Lee, stop right there." It was Margaret, the head nurse, firm and cold. "You can't just change her bandages. There's protocol." Aiden turned, eyes blazing but voice calm. "She's been lying here like this for half a year. Those bandages are cutting into her. I don't care about protocol, I care about saving her." Before she could stop him, he reached for a pair of sterile scissors. His hands, though tired, moved with purpose. As he began to cut the old fabric away, a quiet defiance filled the room. He didn't know it yet, but this small act would shatter the silence that held Olivia prisoner, and spark a miracle no one saw coming. The scissors sliced softly through the old fabric. Aiden peeled away the stained, stiff bandages, revealing Olivia's pale chest. Faint red lines marked her skin, indentations from months of being wrapped too tightly. His breath caught. She hadn't just been neglected. She had been suffocating. Behind him, Nurse Margaret stood frozen. "You're risking your entire career," she muttered. "Then let them fire me," Aiden replied without looking up. His voice was low but full of steel. He gently pressed fresh gauze against her skin, his movements careful, deliberate. His fingertips brushed hers for a split second, warmth against cold stillness. Then, silence. Only the machines hummed in the background. The soft hiss of the ventilator. The rhythmic beep of the heart monitor. And then it changed. The monitor stuttered. One slow beep, then another. Faster. Stronger. Aiden froze. Margaret gasped, her clipboard slipping from her hands and clattering to the floor. The numbers on the monitor climbed 60. 65, 70. His own heart pounded as he leaned over her. He watched, breathless, as a faint movement fluttered across Olivia's chest. Her lips parted slightly. A tiny hitch in her breathing. A flicker of something, real? "What the hell?" he whispered. Margaret stumbled back, eyes wide. "Did you see that? Was that real?" Aiden nodded slowly, barely able to believe what he was seeing. After 6 months of silence, of hopelessness, something inside her had responded. It wasn't just a fluke. Something had changed. Aiden didn't speak. He just stood there, staring at the woman who had been lost to the world until now. The world might not have noticed yet, but he did. And he wasn't going to stop until he found out why. That night, the ICU felt even quieter than usual. The machines hummed like distant ghosts. Shadows danced under the flicker of hallway lights. Aiden sat slouched in the corner of Olivia's room, hunched over a tablet, but he couldn't focus. The earlier spike in her vitals replayed in his mind like a looped video. Her heart rate, her lips parting, that tiny, impossible movement. Something had responded to his touch, his care. But what? He swiped through 6 months of medical reports. CT scans, vitals, medications, neurologist notes. The data all pointed to the same vague conclusion: persistent vegetative state. Cause unclear. Unclear. That wasn't enough. Her injuries from the crash were mild, a concussion, some bruises, but nothing that explained her complete shutdown. Why hadn't she woken up? Aiden's mind raced with possibilities. Then a darker thought crept in. One he hadn't wanted to believe. What if this coma wasn't natural at all? He paced the room, sneakers squeaking softly on the tile floor. Olivia looked peaceful, serene, too peaceful. This wasn't just bad luck. This was deliberate. Aiden left her room and slipped quietly down the hallway. Most of the hospital was asleep now. He found the supply room. The door creaked open. Shelves lined with 4 bags, medications, sterile gauze. And then, behind a stack of gauze pads, something caught his eye. A small, unmarked vial, half full with a clear liquid. No label, no barcode, nothing. His heart thudded. This wasn't standard hospital inventory. He pocketed the vial and backed out of the room, his pulse pounding in his ears. Back in his office, he pulled out his phone and called someone he could trust. "Jake," he whispered. "It's Aiden. I need a favor." His old friend, a lab tech, groaned on the other end. "Dude, it's 2 a.m. I need you to test something. Off the books. First thing tomorrow." There was a long pause. Then Jake muttered, "Fine. Bring it." 2 days later, they met at a dingy coffee shop near the hospital. Jake took one look at the vial and frowned. He swirled it, sniffed it, held it up to the light. "No label." "What is this?" he asked. "That's what I need you to tell me." Jake didn't ask more questions. Aiden was visibly shaken. This wasn't paranoia. It was real. Later that night, the call came. "Aiden, it's a sedative," Jake said. "A very specific kind. Low-dose anesthetic. Meant to keep someone calm but not unconscious. It could keep someone barely alive. Just enough to make them seem unresponsive." Aiden's blood ran cold. Someone had drugged Olivia. Someone wanted her in that coma. And now he had proof. A storm rolled across Manhattan that night, thunder rumbling in the distance as rain hammered the windows of St. Augustine's. Inside the ICU, the glow of monitors lit the dark room like tiny constellations. Aiden hadn't slept in over 16 hours. Still, he stayed by Olivia's side. He did his routine vitals check, a heart rate steady, oxygen normal, blood pressure unchanged. All numbers said the same thing, nothing new. But something didn't feel right. He adjusted her blanket, then leaned in to listen with his stethoscope. Lightning flashed outside, briefly illuminating her face, and that's when he saw it. Her eyelid twitched. He froze. Waited. Watched. "Probably just my imagination," he muttered under his breath. But then her lashes parted. Not a dream. Not a reflex. Her eyes opened. Dark, unfocused, glassy, but alive. Aiden dropped his stethoscope in shock, the metal clattering to the floor. He stepped closer, heart pounding, barely breathing. "Olivia?" he whispered. Her eyes fluttered, locking onto his. There was confusion, fear, but awareness. He grabbed a pen light and tested her pupils. They responded, slow but real. He tapped her knee. A faint twitch. A reflex. She was waking up. His hands trembled. 6 months of silence had just ended. She couldn't speak, not with the breathing tube still in, but her gaze followed him with fierce focus. She blinked, slowly, deliberately. One blink. Yes. Aiden's throat tightened. He leaned in, his voice barely holding together. "You're back," he said. "You're really back." She blinked again. Her fingers shifted just a little, but it was enough. Enough to tell him she was still inside, fighting to come out. He reached down and gently placed his hand over hers. "You're safe now," he said softly. "I'm here." The monitor beeped steadily in the background, but to Aiden it sounded like a heartbeat coming back to life. She wasn't just a patient anymore. She was a person. Awake. A soul he'd fought to protect. And now the real battle was about to begin. For the next few days, Aiden stayed close to Olivia's side, guarding her progress and her secret. Only he and a select nurse knew she was awake. He kept it that way, until he could find proof. Until he could protect her. Because if someone had drugged her, they might try to finish what they started. Aiden combed through hospital logs, visitor records, anything he could get his hands on. One name kept popping up: Daniel Nien, Olivia's younger brother. Polished, charming, always in designer suits. Since her accident, he'd been managing her empire and doing it a little too well. The timing, the money, the control. It all felt convenient. Then came the breakthrough. Aiden convinced a security guard to show him CCTV footage from 6 months ago. Grainy, low resolution, but enough. He spotted Daniel in a dark hallway late at night. He wasn't alone. He was talking to a nurse, Jenny, nervous as darting around. Daniel handed her a vial. The same kind Aiden had found. Moments later, Daniel clapped her on the shoulder. Like a deal had been sealed. Aiden's blood boiled. He printed the stills, labeled the footage, time-stamped everything. And then he confronted Jenny. She broke. Tears in her eyes, she confessed in a whisper he said it would just help her rest. That she'd wake up soon. He gave me $5,000 to keep quiet. She hadn't known it would go on for 6 months. The next morning, Aiden stormed into the executive boardroom where Daniel was casually sipping coffee with hospital brass. The room went silent as Aiden slammed a manila folder onto the table, photos, confessions, everything spilling out. "This," he said through clenched teeth, "is attempted murder." Daniel's smirk froze, but only for a second. He leaned back, calm as ever. "That's a bold accusation, Dr. Lee. Got proof?" Aiden jabbed his finger at the photos. Security footage. A nurse's confession. A payment trail. You drugged your own sister. You wanted her out of the way so you could take everything. Murmurs erupted around the table. Daniel stood slowly, his smile gone. His voice dropped to a hiss. "You're a dead man walking. She's my sister. My business." Aiden didn't flinch. "She's awake. She's alive. And she knows everything." Daniel paled. "You've lost," Aiden said. "And now? I'm taking this to the police." The room exploded in chaos as Daniel stormed out. But Aiden didn't care. He had what he needed. He had the truth. And now he would use it to take back everything Olivia had lost. The courtroom buzzed with reporters, lawyers, and flashing cameras. The world had caught wind of the scandal. Olivia Nien, once thought lost, was alive and ready to speak. She stepped into the courthouse slowly, a cane supporting her as she walked. Her body was still recovering, but her mind was sharper than ever. Behind her, Aiden walked silently, a steady presence, a guardian. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Daniel sat across the aisle, slick as ever in a tailored suit. But his eyes gave him away, darting, twitching, calculating. Aiden took a seat behind Olivia. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched. Then came the opening statement. Rachel Kim, Olivia's attorney, laid it all out. Attempted murder. Medical fraud. Conspiracy. Corporate theft. The jury watched the security footage, Daniel handing the vial to Nurse Jenny. Then came the recorded confession. Jenny's trembling voice filled the courtroom. "He said she'd be fine, just resting. He gave me cash. I didn't know it would go on so long." Daniel's face darkened, his smirk gone. Then Olivia took the stand. The room fell into absolute silence. Her voice was raspy but clear. She told them everything, the months of silence. The betrayal. The moment she saw Aiden's face when she first woke up. How he had risked everything to save her. "My own brother," she said, her voice breaking, "tried to erase me from my life." The jury hung on every word. Daniel's defense tried to twist it, claiming stress, miscommunication. But the judge didn't buy it. She slammed the gavel. "Court is adjourned until tomorrow." We will reconvene for final judgment. Outside, chaos exploded. Reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Olivia and Aiden pushed through the crowd, heading toward their car, then Aiden felt it. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. A massive man in a hoodie was charging straight at them. A flash of metal in his hand. A knife. Olivia, down? Aiden yelled, shoving her behind him. The attacker lunged. Aiden tackled him, but the blade slashed across his arm. Blood poured down his sleeve. Security swarmed in seconds, pinning the man to the ground. Olivia cried out, rushing to Aiden. Aiden, you're bleeding. He grinned weakly, trying to play it off. Just a scratch. But she didn't laugh. She tore off her scarf, pressed it to the wound, hands shaking. I can't lose you, she whispered. Sirens howled in the distance. Paramedics arrived. The crowd erupted with flashing lights and questions. Olivia didn't care. She climbed into the ambulance beside Aiden and never let go of his hand. That night, the attack made national news. But what the world saw most clearly was Olivia naming Aiden not just as her doctor, but as the man who saved her life again. Aiden lay in a hospital bed at St. Augustine's, his arms stitched and bandaged. The pain was manageable, but what truly hurt was the doubt gnawing at his chest. He had spent days scrolling through headlines. Billionaire heiress and her doctor boyfriend, is it love or a PR stunt? From ICU to romance, real or rebound? Every comment stung. She's way out of his league. He's a nobody riding her coattails. He told himself it didn't matter. But deep down, it did. That evening, Olivia walked into his hospital room dressed in a soft sweater, her hair tied loosely, no cameras, no spotlight, just her. She placed a tray beside him. Your turn, she said, opening a small first aid kit. He blinked. I'm the patient now? She smiled. Exactly. As she gently cleaned the sweat from his brow, her fingers trembled slightly. You scared me, she murmured. I thought I'd lose you. Aiden turned his face toward her hand, pressing his cheek into her palm. You won't, he said softly. I'd take 100 knives for you. Her eyes glistened. But you shouldn't have to. He could feel something shift between them, something unspoken pressing against both of their chests. But Aiden pulled away, sitting up slowly. I've been thinking, he began hesitantly. Maybe we should step back. She blinked, confused. What? He looked down. The press, the world. They think I'm some charity case. That you're slumming it with a guy who lives in a one-bedroom in Queens. Olivia's face hardened. Let them think whatever they want. But I care, he said, voice cracking. I don't want to be your weakness. I don't want to drag you down. A painful silence filled the room. Then Olivia stood up, fire in her voice. No, you don't get to decide that for me. She walked to the door, then turned back. You want proof that you're not dragging me down? Watch this. The next day, Olivia stood behind a podium in a sleek downtown studio. Dozens of reporters. Flashing cameras. The entire city watching live. She wore a simple black dress. No makeup. No PR team. Just truth. There's been a lot of talk about my relationship with Dr. Aiden Lee, she began, her voice steady. Let me be clear, he's not a story. He's not a headline. He's the reason I'm alive. Gasps rippled through the room. He fought for me when no one else did. When I was forgotten, he saw me. When my own family betrayed me, he protected me. She glanced directly at Aiden, who stood off to the side, frozen. I love him. That's it. That's all. Write what you want, we're not going anywhere. The crowd exploded, but all Aiden saw was her. She stepped down, walking straight to him. Believe me now, she asked, her smile soft, challenging. He didn't say a word. He just pulled her into his arms and held her like he never wanted to let go. A year had passed. Spring air drifted through a Brooklyn park, the scent of blooming trees mingling with laughter and soft footsteps. Beneath a wooden arch wrapped in wildflowers, Aiden Lee stood in a simple gray suit. No crowd. No cameras. Just 20 guests. Mostly old friends. Nurses from St. Augustine's. A few patients from the clinic. And then she appeared. Olivia Nian. A white dress flowed around her like clouds in motion. Her dark hair spilled freely over her shoulders, no makeup but still glowing. Not as a billionaire. Not as a survivor. Just as a woman. In love. As she reached him, he whispered, You're breathtaking. She smiled. Took you long enough to marry me. The vows were personal, handwritten. Aiden promised to never stop fighting for her, even in silence. Olivia vowed to build a life not on power, but on truth and love. They sealed it with a kiss, gentle, full of years' worth of struggle and hope. There was no lavish honeymoon. Instead, 2 weeks later, they opened the doors to a place far more meaningful. The Neon Lee Free Clinic in a forgotten corner of Queens. A squat brick building. No marble, no fountains, just a simple sign and an open door. Anyone could walk in. No insurance, no questions, just care. Aiden wore hoodies now instead of a white coat. He moved from room to room, patching cuts, treating flu, listening, laughing. Olivia worked the front desk, her once steely voice now full of warmth. She handled donors, scheduled appointments, greeted everyone by name. They stayed late every night, shared takeout dinners over stacks of charts and forms, argued about paper shortages, laughed over broken thermometers, lived. One evening they stood outside the clinic as the sun dipped below the horizon. Aiden leaned against the railing, a coffee cup in his hand. Olivia beside him, scarf wrapped loosely around her neck. He looked at her, truly looked at her. "Worth it?" he asked softly. She didn't hesitate. Every second, she slipped her hand into his. Fingers laced tightly together. They didn't need mansions, or boardrooms, or billions. They had this. They had each other. And they had built something real. As the stars began to rise, they turned and walked back inside. Tomorrow's patients would come early. From the cold silence of a hospital room to the soft hum of a clinic built with love. Olivia and Aiden's story wasn't just about survival. It was about choosing to live again and again and again. They didn't win because they had money, or power, or fame. They won because they chose to fight. For truth, for each other, for the people no one else would fight for. In a world full of noise, they created peace. In a city of strangers, they built connection. And in a life filled with pain, they found healing. Together. So if you ever feel lost, if the world feels heavy, remember this: sometimes one small act of courage, like changing a bandage, can spark a miracle that changes everything. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories. Because the world needs more reminders that love, even in silence, can still speak the loudest.